Hey guys, Tbull here. Today we got to look at the Mogami, buffed Mogami. Atago on the screen there. Note that slot 2, that's a perk unique to this AL Atago, increases the damage by 10%, increases the fire chance, I'm not even sure by what percent, increases the incoming damage by 10%. So kind of a high risk, high reward build. Also have slot 1 Ingenious on there, lets you know when you're being targeted, helpful. Increases the turret traverse, even more helpful. So Ingenious is a perk that if you got it available, I would almost always recommend it on your cruiser builds. I can't think of a situation where I wouldn't use it. But Mogami, a lot of people are always asking me, what's your favorite ship in the game? I got a lot of ships that I enjoy. This probably is my favorite ship. It's a very elegant playstyle, flowing kind of... It's just a fun ship for me to play. I think it's underrated by the player base. I think it's a very strong ship. I can put up 150k in this thing fairly consistently as long as the enemy's in range of the guns here. But it did get a buff recently. Got better turret traverse, 6 degrees per second to 7 degrees per second. And then the torpedoes, 58 to 60 knots in the water. And the detectability decreased from 1.8 to 1.7. These aren't the type of torps that we're going to be wanting to launch while rushing battleships or anything. We're going to be using the zoning torpedo style with these. And we'll see that torpedo style as this game evolves and how you can use it effectively. Looking on the map though, here we got one destroyer moving into A, one spawned north of B. That's coming our way. I don't know if he's going to go to B or C yet, but 2 destroyers per side. I'm making an aggressive move here into C, potentially going to zing some torps close range after I just tell you that you don't generally want to do that. But I got an eye on the situation here, and I'm definitely prepared to turn off if the situation calls for it. But look right there. Gneisenau. Now it looks to me like he spawned on C and he's leaving C. And we can see there's a few battleships being spotted so far. But the fact that we got one of the ships that spawned by C, I'm thinking to myself, maybe the whole flank is abandoning here. You don't want to be abandoning the caps you spawn on. There's no reason for it. I can't think of a single reason on most maps ever that you'd want to abandon your spawn. It's just conceding caps more or less. But it emboldens us because we're recognizing the battleships and we're seeing all 4 of them spot at this point in time. So that's the primary threat to the Mogami. Any destroyer or a cruiser that wants to fight us, well, we're going to be willing to take that fight. Fiji pops up here. Now that's a ship we need to respect. But we're on the cap here. They know we're on the cap. So we got 1 Fiji, 1 Gneisenau accounting for the spawn here. And as we're turning to angle against this Fiji, because we don't want to be giving them broadside with that juicy AP, look at this. We get spotted here in Akatsuki close range, and oh boy, whammo, that's a rough shot on him. So we're going to drop that first salvo, not at the Akatsuki, more for that Fiji if he wants to turn in to support this Akatsuki aggressively. Maybe he'll get those torps. We got the hydroactive, we got the plane. Planes do help spot the torps. You might get the more early detection with those. It might also spot the destroyer potentially, or the cruiser if they pop out of their smoke covers. So certainly multiple reasons to drop both of those consumables there. One of our battleships is taking a lot of those torps, unfortunately, but because we got plenty of warning on where those torps are heading, we're able to angle successfully there. And look at this, we're going to be torping this gap here. Now, why are we doing that? The Fiji's position on the map is kind of pointing there, and I'm thinking he knows these battleships are kind of rushing them. I'm making sure we capture this base before we do anything else, but we're torping that gap. We're not torping the ships necessarily. We're torping areas where we think that ships might likely be. And I'm thinking if I'm that Fiji, I'm getting the heck out of there. So I don't want 2 battleships rushing me, even if I got that destroyer support. So we're torping that gap under the assumption that he might be running and he might be passing through that gap and the torps get there. The torpedoes, when they're on your ship, do 0 damage. Okay, so, and if you have a minute, minute and a half, whatever the reload is on this, I don't really know or care. Just go ahead and pump them out there. You can see everyone else on the map miles and miles away. So if we're just going to be throwing the torps out whenever we can, that just makes the waters more dangerous for the enemy. And that's what these Japanese torpedoes on the cruisers are primarily there to do. Just make the area around your area of control more dangerous for these other opposing ships. There the Fiji pops up. Note on the map he's broadside, so we immediately switch over to the AP. Akatsuki does get spotted there. I'm hoping to get a shot off, but he's going to get behind the island. So we're going to go back and turn our attention towards the Fiji. Wait till our guns are clear. He's under a little bit of fire, but he goes from 2/3 to under 1/3 of his health there. So nice juicy shot there. Japanese cruisers, you're almost always going to be shooting HE, but close range cruisers where you get these kind of ambush situations and you get these broadside shots, go ahead and switch over to AP. You can get some nice juicy shots on there. So the Akatsuki goes down, Fiji goes down, Ganaizenau ran, so our side is clear. We captured C, they conceded B, and our team up there, where the majority of the fighting is around A, we got the cap. Now they just killed the Udachi up there, so we got to keep an eye on the situation. But if we can ever figure out how to sight this King George, he's kind of, for some reason, throwing me off here. I'm going to miss a few salvos. But in this point in the game, we got C, we got B, and we got A, but we got to assume when we're evaluating the game, let's just assume that red is going to get that. They're going to push blue back. They're going to get the cap. We don't necessarily care about that, though, because we got B, we got C, and I'm just going to hang around B and keep patrolling this area, make sure that anything that's going to be pushing in here is going to have to go through me. So in the meantime, we got shots in all these ships. We're going to keep lobbing shells downrange there, trying to start some fires. If the fires stick, great, we'll get the damage. If not, then they use up their damage control party on that, and then my team potentially could burn him down. So there we saw some incoming fire. We were aware that would likely be coming because we have Ingenious. We knew we were being targeted by 1 or 2 ships during that sequence. But note, when the shots come in, we have to turn in. Mogami, my first ever game in the Mogami, I can remember it like yesterday, even though it was over 2 years ago, blew up. One shot probably about 2 minutes into the game. I was broadside to, God, probably in Iowa back in the day when the game first came out, and he blew me out of the water. I was like, oh boy, apparently that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. And ever since then, I've kind of noticed if you're angling well, once in a while they'll get a juicy hit, but the Citadel is largely protected, not against the Yamato, of course, but against most battleships, largely protected. Once in a while they'll get a juicy oddball bounce. But if you're doing a good job angling, you're going to be limiting the damage typically to like 2,000 or 3,000 type damage salvos, as opposed to 39,100 damage type salvos. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that there's less appeal for the Mogami among the masses, just because if you make mistakes, you get blown up immediately. But if you play it well, you can actually defend yourself fairly well. So note, we got some more zoning torps there. Why are we going for that gap? Well, we knew that they were on A. The destroyer was likely on A because they were capping the base while no other surface ships were visible over there. And I'm thinking if he plays it well, he's going to want to go immediately from A into B. If he plays it poorly and chases the battleships to the north, well, he's got other ships moving in there. So we launch the one salvo, take a couple more shots downrange, and then we're going to go ahead and torp the same gap, just in case the destroyer is hanging out over there and then decides he wants to come back here. But look at these shots here. Again, we weren't aiming at the King George, we weren't aiming at the guy behind him, but both of these ships going to take torpedo strikes. Now, he's in trouble here. We're going to try and pile on the damage. He looks like he probably damage controlled that, but if we can hit him with another shot or two, and there's another follow-up salvo on another battleship behind him, another salvo or two, and down he goes there. So that's kind of the idea with these zoning torpedoes here. We don't, they're more effective due to the slow nature of them, and 60 knots, I think, is what they're at now. I mean, that's not horribly slow, but if you compare them to the Japanese destroyer torpedoes, for instance, quite a bit slower. But we want to be staying long range with these Japanese cruisers, Mogami in particular, in most cases. Sometimes you can get close for ambushes, but in general, we're going to be wanting to be staying further away, and we can just be lobbing these torpedoes down there and then just kind of sending them into areas where we expect there's likely to be enemies. And you can see sometimes you'll get hits, sometimes they got to react to them, angle towards them. That might give your teammates some shots. It's, a formerly angled ship that's now reacting to your torpedoes. If you can create crossfires, and you can see my battleship's position up north where all those red ships are focusing. If we're sending in torpedoes that angle, and they do turn to angle towards those torpedoes, then those ships can potentially punch them through the side of the ship. So in the meantime, we're just continuing to sail around here. If we can find cover where we're not being spotted, we can always drop the anchor, but we always want to be kind of ready to be on the move here. So if we ever slow down or whatever, you got to be, it's more of a flowing play style in my mind, kind of more of a run and gun. Kagero inexplicably thinks he's going to gun down a battleship. Maybe he's really low health, I don't know, but that's unfortunate because now he's close range to us, and that's why we were making a beeline up here, because once we recognized kind of he wasn't getting torped there and we weren't getting spotted, so we kind of knew the destroyer was going around the north side of that island. Made a beeline up there, intercepted him. Whatever reason he opened up the guns that cost him his life, we gunned him down. And now we turn away from these guys. We're not going to be pushing into battleships. Come on. That's not what we're going to be doing in most cruisers, certainly not the Mogami. But we continue to be laying down these torps. Now, look at the aim indicator. It's saying he's out of range. We don't care about that. What if he turns in? What he says, oh, there's a Mogami down there. Oh, we better start focusing on capturing these bases since we're down 500 points. Then we got the torps ready for them. If they want to keep sailing to the Arctic Circle to the north, then we already won the game, right? Because they're not pressuring B. They're not pressuring C. There's no chance they can get C. But they definitely need A and B. Or else they're going to have to kill us all. So, nope, here we're not detected. We're using this island cover. We got the teammates to the north until he just died there that we're spotting. And we were just going to use that cover. As long as these guys are presenting shots from us, and, you know, that's from our teammates spotting those guys, we're going to go ahead and keep taking those shots all day long. But now, you know, we're losing a little bit of points because we're losing some ships here. They're still tied up in terms of ships. Team HP wise, they got a lot more. So we got to make sure we're not going to be killed here. Because if we got a battleship that goes down, and he is going to go down, then we got 2 cruisers and a destroyer. And the destroyer is pretty dang close to the red team there. So we got to make sure that we're not doing anything foolish. And no, we're not going to have quite the range on those torps there to hit the Jean Bart, but, you know, that's kind of what we're doing with that zoning torpedo. If he was trended a little bit more south as opposed to going a little bit more north there, those would have hit him, potentially killed him, or at least grievously wounded him there. So that's the whole concept behind these zoning torpedoes. We're zoning areas, not targeting ships actively. And usually targeting ships actively with your torpedoes at really long ranges is a very low percentage shot anyways, because all they have to do is slightly change their direction or their speed in the minute or so that it's going to take them to get there, and you've already missed anyways. So the more and more I play the game, the higher the percentage of my torpedo launches are zoning torps in general. But Mogami, Japanese cruisers, especially the ones that fire rearward like this, where, you know, we're just kind of we're in kiting formations, pointing away from the enemy, launching the torpedoes out there. Those are all, for the most part, usually zoning torpedoes. If for some reason, we find ourselves into a more reliable torpedo shot, of course, we're going to aim at the ship, but in general, just sending the torpedoes into areas. So at this point in time, the game's getting pretty close. They got to start killing some ships on the red team, but you can see the video's still a few more minutes long, so they're going to be doing their best to do what they can do there. The destroyer's on A. Why is he that close to the team is my question. I don't understand that. A lot of times the destroyers have this, I'm going to preserve the cap, or I'm going to capture this cap at all cost mentality. If your life is threatened because they're pushed into you, get the heck away from them. Okay, because destroyers in general, if you miss your torpedo salvo, then you're dead. You got very little recourse for battleships or cruisers that are pushing into you. So they get the Bismarck there. And the destroyers taking shots, we'll see. So we're identifying these low health ships. Who can we kill fastest? Because we want to win on score here. And if we can kill this Massachusetts, for instance, that should basically end the game here. So we're trying to kill him before they can kill the destroyer on our team. Suzuki would be a decent target. It's a little bit more slippery, more agile, less easy to hit in general, smaller targets. So in general, I think the Massachusetts is the better target. But we are beginning to take some fire here, so I'm playing a little lackadaisical. Now we tighten up the angle. Now we bring up the speed. I was just hoping to close that game out, hoping that the Massachusetts would be dead by now. But now we're up to over 150k damage, pretty decent damage output. But I thought this game was more instructive in terms of the zoning torpedoes and kind of reading the flow of the game. We weren't ever getting too aggressive with our positioning, but just content to hold positions and play like that. So anyway, that's a look at the Mogami with the buff. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. We got lots of World of Warships. It's coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. Love to hear from you guys, and see y'all later. Peace.